Week 2 of the 2025 season is in the bag. A later episode for Week 2 from me because our beloved Chargers played on Monday night in the USA, which was early Tuesday morning here. I think the game kicked off at 3 a.m, so I was not going to start to watch that. Before we get into that, let's have a recap of the week that was. A great slate of games. Dallas versus the Giants was a great game. Great game from Russell Wilson until it wasn't. That horrendous interception at the end. Malik Neighbors for the Giants had a great game. Malik Neighbors was in the fantasy team of my opponent this week. 37 points from him alone, so I got trounced in fantasy football. Joe Burrow being injured. What a bummer. What a bummer. Yes, I know he's not a Charger, so why should I really care? But we should all really care when the stars of the game go out. And I really like Joe Burrow. He's obviously a fantastic quarterback, an elite quarterback, but I like him as a person. I like his sort of charisma and his chutzpah. And it looks like he's out for the regular season. Maybe he will come back in for the playoffs. But the question now is, of course, do the Bengals make the playoffs? Feel for the Bengals fans. Imagine how we would feel if something happened to Justin Herbert this early in the season. Other observations from week 2? Well, the continuing struggles of C.J. Stroud go on unrelenting. He just doesn't seem to be the same player he was in his rookie season. So that's not a good look for the Texans. They're defensively they're very strong, but they changed defensive coordinators, and he just looks lost at the minute, doesn't he? And my undying love for Baker Mayfield grows and grows and grows. What a guy he is. Yeah. You talk about chutzpah and personality and drive. Because he's maybe not the most physically gifted quarterback. He's not particularly big. He's got a strong enough arm, but he's not a big dominating bloke. But he just does not give in. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are always good to watch with him at the helm. And what an amazing drive that he led in the final moments of their game, and a well deserved victory. A great week all round in week 2. I'll tell you why it's a great week, because the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Raiders all lost. Yes, the Raiders lost. They were playing our beloved San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers. And basically, we gave them a good old stomping, really. We were wearing what we were wearing. So the white tops with these new powder blue leggings, jeggings, whatever you want to call them. They're not pants, okay? They're not pants. Pants go under your trousers, okay? And we went to their place in Sin City, the Las Vagrants, and gave them a good old beating up, really. There was some, offensively, we had some really good moments. That beautiful pass from Herbert to Johnson, more or less 60 yards through the air, was a thing of beauty. God, the guy's got an arm, hasn't he? And he's finally getting a bit of love from the, as Dan Hansen would say, the cognoscenti of the football world. Thought he played really, really well. But the real star of the show was the defensive side of the LA Chargers. Yes, the offense did enough, but in the second sleep we went to half. In the second half, they went to sleep a bit. Third down conversions just weren't happening. We started off playing very clean football, and then we had a terrible fumble on the horrendous Darius Davis end around thing, and then a Marion Hampton fumbles. Yes, he's a rookie, but if there's one coach who won't tolerate the running back putting the ball on the floor, it's Jim Harbaugh. So he needs to tidy that up ASAP. But it was the defense that won that game. Really, really strong. And Geno Smith, who I like, gunslinger, kind of a redemption story, isn't it? Started off as a bit of a brat for the Jets, rebuilt himself and his career at the Seahawks, and is now playing for the Las Vegas Raiders, and seems to be a good guy. But when he's off, he's really off. And the Chargers defense was pressing him all through the game, and his passer rating was 180 yards, 3 interceptions, and his passer rating was 37. Now that's Mark Malone territory. And for you younger boppers who might not know who Mark Malone was the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in the early to mid 1980s, and somehow in 1984 he actually managed to guide his Steelers team to the AFC Championship game Unfortunately for Malone and the Steelers, they were playing this young Italian-American quarterback in his second season from Pittsburgh University originally, but drafted by the Miami Dolphins. The guy's name, of course, is Dan Marino, and his second season is famous. He broke all kinds of records, 48 touchdowns, just over 5,000 passing yards. This, of course, was in the 16-season game. This was an era where you could batter the quarterback a good few seconds after he'd released the ball and no flags would be thrown, where at the line of scrimmage, cornerbacks and wide receivers would often have a wrestling match before the wide receiver got off his blocks. It was a different game then, and the more you look at that record, the records he set in 1984, the more amazing it becomes. And if you haven't seen any footage of Marino from that 84 season, just open up YouTube, type Dan Marino 1984. The guy was just on a different planet. Anyway, Marino's Dolphins beat the Steelers in the AFC Championship game and then got pummeled themselves by the 49ers in the Super Bowl, and that was Marino's one Super Bowl appearance. Mark Malone never made a Super Bowl appearance. After that 84 season, his career went to a steep decline, and so much so by the 1986 season, when he finished that for the Steelers, he had a rating, I think, of around 62, a passer rating of 62, and then in 1987, a passer rating of 46. 6 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. Again, go and Google Mark Malone 1987, and it's just a horror show. The guy completely lost his mechanics, his confidence. The Three Rivers crowd, the booing was vociferous. Chuck Noll said, who was the Steelers coach at the time, he'd never heard any player for any team ever get that kind of negativity on him. So what did the Chargers do in 1988? When Dan Fouts, the Hall of Famer Dan Fouts, had retired after 14 years' service to the Chargers. What did the Chargers do to replace a Hall of Famer? Yes, of course, they go and get Mark Malone to quarterback the club in the 1988 season, along with another person you probably haven't heard of, Babe Laufenberg. And these two quarterbacks quarterbacked the Chargers to a 6-10 season in 1988. The last season for Al Saunders. To be honest, it was one of the great coaching jobs. How Al Saunders coached 6 wins out of that team, which was very weak, with extremely weak quarterback play, I do not know, but it wasn't good enough for Alex Spanos, and he was sacked. That was it was a high point in ineptitude. That era of the Chargers. This was before Bobby Bettard joined the club and turned them around, and then before John Butler and AJ Smith also did the same thing. This was a period where the club was badly run and they made bad decisions. We had one great player on the offensive side of the team in 1988, and he was an offensive tackle, a Pro Bowl level tackle, Jim Lachey. Could have been a Hall of Famer. His career was plagued by injuries. But what did we do in the 1988 season? We just lost a Hall of Fame quarterback in Dan Fouts. We'd had 14 years to find a replacement for Dan Fouts. Hadn't managed it. Complete cock-up. What did we do? We got rid of Jim Lachey. He was traded to the Redskins. So the 1988 offense was awful. And it reminded me, watching poor old Gino of the Raiders, it reminded me of Mark Malone. A passer rating of 37 is hard to achieve. Derwin James for the Chargers in their win on Monday night had a great game. Dayan Henley, who wasn't well, but he played, and he's really coming on, the linebacker. Interception off the first play of the game kind of set the tone. Of course, we had Cameron Dicker, who's now the most accurate kicker in NFL history. That's put the hex on him. But 94% accuracy on his first 100 field goals. Amazing stuff. So we're currently 2-0. The Chargers. We sit atop the AFC West. As I said at the start, all the other AFC West teams lost. So things so far are going really, really well for us. Mind you, going back in time again to the last year when Dan Fouts quarterbacked these Chargers in 1987, we started off with a 2-0 record then in Al Saunders' first season, but we finished with an 8-7 record. I think we had a 6-game losing streak at the end to finish 8-7. Younger listeners, 8-7, that's 15. How come? What happened to the 16th game? That was a strike season. They lost a game early on because of the strike. Then the NFL teams got in sort of players reserve players. They called up players from anywhere because the frontline players were all on strike. And for the next few weeks, we had NFL, kind of sub-NFL, played by scratch teams who weren't very good. When the good teams came back, when the strike was resolved later on in the season, the Chargers then hit their losing streak because their team wasn't that great. But it was great when it was made up of scrubs and reserves to get us to 8-1, finishing 8-7. And that was the second strike in that period under the Pete Rozelle period in 1982 as well. There was a strike-shortened season, and it was almost the time when America fell out of love with the NFL. But that hasn't happened since. We haven't had any strike action since. It often gets talked about, but of course we now know what a behemoth the NFL is. It was big in 1987. It is just ginormous now. So excellent stuff. The Chargers go to 2-0. Looking good on all sides of the ball. It'd be nice to have a running game. Marion Hampton, he's shown glimpses. If he can just break a big one off, which he's got the ability to do, that'll be absolutely great. Khalil Mack has an injury. Not too sure of the extent of that as I record this yet. Obviously, he's a big part of the Chargers team, and not just in terms of his input on the defence, but it's just his general charisma. He's a leader. The younger players look up to him, so let's hope he's not too badly injured. Our next opponent, well, we are going to play the Denver Broncos, and it's a home game for the Chargers. Don't laugh at the back. We don't really have home games, do we? I'm sure there'll be as many Bronco fans there as there will be Charger fans, but that's the world we're in, and we can't do anything about it. The Chargers are 2.5-point favourites with a money line of 158, which implies a 61% chance of winning. I've got no idea what that means. I'm just reading that off a website I've looked up, but 2.5-point favourite I can understand, so that's good. The Broncos have a strong defence. The offence, who knows? Bo Nix was a rookie last year, got better as the year went on. But the second season syndrome, it's hard to get by. Teams have the chance to look at you and scout you and look for your tendencies and your weaknesses. And, the NFL is a catch-up game. What worked one week won't work the next. What will work for you for one season will be negated to a degree the next as the coordinators block heads and bash heads against each other on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So Bo Nix hasn't been great yet, but Sean Payton certainly knows how to coach quarterbacks. And I wouldn't take any win over the Broncos as an absolute certainty. Certainly not in Denver, but even at home, because as I say, we don't really have home field advantage. And what are we wearing? We're going to be wearing our powder blue jerseys with the white leggings for this home game. Wasn't sure about the uniform for the game just gone. Those new blue jegging things. I don't know. Maybe I'll get you some. They look from a distance. The outfit looked like the Miami Dolphins because the blue almost looked turquoise. Would be interesting to see the new yellow shirt paired with the blue leggings. In other words, an inverse of their powder blue tops and yellow leggings. That would be good to see something like that rolled out in a future season. Obviously, this year's uniform schedule is already in the bag and we can't really change it. And why? Why? You're asking me. Why, Nick, are you blabbering on about the uniforms? Because they're the best in the NFL. That's why. And if we don't win anything, we win that award year in, year out, and it's the only award that matters. Okay, I think that's about it for now. Let's go Chargers on Sunday. Thank you for your time. Stay away from the lightning. It can kill.
The Bolts of Pain podcast is available in all good gentlemen's clubs. Ask upon entry. Discretion assured.